Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Marking World Children's Day, which is celebrated every 20th of November. And this year we're really encouraged to see Malaysian children speaking up more than ever, including young advocates presenting Malaysia's first Convention on the Rights of the Child Children's Report in Geneva. So tonight on the show, we'll explore if we are truly listening to what children are telling us about their lives and if policymakers will act on it. So joining me on the show, I have Sanja Saranovic, who is the deputy representative for UNICEF Malaysia. And I also have Jessie Lee, who is a child advocate. So both of you, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. Lots to talk about, but if I may begin with you, Sanja, your assessment of where Malaysia has made meaningful progress on child rights. And I do wonder, because I believe this year or next year, 2026, we have a review of our commitments under the Convention of the Rights of the Child, the CRC. So talk to me a little bit about where we're at now in terms of making progress on child rights.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Melisa, for the invitation. I'm always happy to talk about child rights, especially in Malaysia. So having said that, Malaysia is doing really well. There are several things that Malaysia is committed to do so. Since ratification in 1995, Malaysia is next year reporting on the second to fourth report progress on implementation on the child rights in Malaysia. Why is delayed? Because it was COVID era, many other countries were in line, but this is a perfect opportunity for Malaysia to showcase a good progress. Malaysia is doing well when it comes to the legislation. The Child Act is really a solid base to implement and to align the national legislation with the Convention on the Rights of the Child that Malaysia ratified in 1995. Then we have the recent legislative changes for the children who are in contact in the law, like victims, but also children who are victims of sexual abuse. So in terms of legislation, Malaysia is doing well. Also, Malaysia is trying to align child rights to go hand in hand with economic progress. So everything around 13 Malaysia plan, we are supporting the government to really put child rights and the children issue high on the agenda. Okay. In addition, I mean, there is a lot to talk, but I'm just giving you some highlights.
Yeah, the highlights.
In addition, Malaysia universal school enrollment is very high, above 90%. Immunization is very high. But however, you know, there are still those who are the most vulnerable, the most marginalized, or the poor among the poorest. There are always some groups of children who are
left behind?
Left behind, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Jessie, does it feel like Malaysia is making progress when Sanja says, you know, Malaysia has made some progress? For you as a child in Malaysia, does it feel that way to you?
I mean, honestly, it does in some ways. As a student that, you know, goes to national school, like government school, it does feel like, yeah, Malaysia is making the steps that we need it to make. But of course, like Sanja said, you know, there are groups that are being left behind. You know, it's not just, you know, children who are in cities that, oh my God, the syllabus is so hard, and then that's what we need to focus on. But it's also on children who are in, you know, marginalized communities, like the refugee children, the disabled children, all those kids, right? They have such small access to school, and even if they do get into school, they don't get the equal systems that, like documented children get.
Yeah,
you know,
equal access.
And it feels so like you're saying that you respect children, you're saying that you take our values, but then when we ask you about the other children, you're like, oh, that doesn't really matter, or you put them as etc. You don't name them.
So I understand you presented Malaysia's first CRC Children's Report in Geneva. Was it in February?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So tell me about that experience, but also what did it reveal to you about what issues matter the most to young people today?
Honestly, that experience was one of a kind. I mean, I still think about it until now because it's such an interesting thing to talk about. Because like, not am I only going out internationally to represent Malaysia as my country, but I also get to talk on the behalf of kids who don't get that opportunity. And a lot of the issues that they brought up was discrimination, you know, because even though Malaysia is considered as a diverse country, there is still so much discrimination going around. How people say that, oh, you shouldn't hang out with these people, or that you shouldn't be with them because that's the stereotype, you know. Even when I was reading through the report, there was this one girl where she wrote a letter about how she was a different race to her friends, and she would try so many things to fit in, but her friends still wouldn't, you know, accept her as who she is because she's just different. And among discrimination, there's also mental health and, you know, just health as in general as an accessibility that people and children need.
Yeah. Okay, definitely a huge topic nowadays about looking at the mental health of young people. Sanja, you talked about some of the progress that Malaysia has made. Where would you say the biggest gaps remain still?
Yeah. In every country in the world, just to say there are gaps. The more the country is developed, there is a more push to really align national legislation and practice with the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Malaysia still has some reservations to the provision of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, but I do believe at this moment there is a strong commitment, as we are supporting the government to report next year to Geneva Committee, there is a strong commitment to work technical, to work on lifting up some of the reservation, and these are the main gaps, right? Unfortunately, Malaysia still have some reservations, so we will support the government on working how to lift those reservations. The world has changed, so there is a new challenges like online. Tomorrow, you may know, the UNICEF is supporting the government in the ASEAN event, is the ICT forum. So there are new challenges, right, that are continuing from offline violations to the online. So how to respond to these new challenges when the industry is progressing so fast, how to responsibilize industry, how to have the partnership with the government, industry, parents, community to really know what is happening with our child when they are online, and how to protect them, and how children to report abuse or potential risk in a safe manner. Jessie spoke about mental health. Fortunately, after COVID, mental health is not anymore taboo, but we still have a large the research that we did together with the Ministry of Health in 2022, My Health Index shows that 1 out of 4 adolescents suffers from some form of depression. 1 out of 10 is suicidal. So there are huge numbers. And this is something that we need to respond together. First, to demystify mental health is not only a health issue. We need to talk more about it. We need to talk at the community level, with the parents, in the school. So there are some gaps, but we are catching up with them, and there is a strong will to address these gaps. And together with the young people who are indicating us where there are gaps, like climate. Jessie will tell you more about it. Climate, young people are leading on these fronts.
Yes, definitely. Tell me, Jessie, how do you see whether policymakers, whether kind of people in authority are listening to children? Because you talked about all the different stakeholders, and I do wonder whether, how do we make sure that children are heard every step of the way, and not just at the end of a checklist, you know, when you go consultation done, that young people are actually part of policy design from the very beginning. Sanja, you mentioned online protection, so safety, child safety online, and I think that's where we could maybe hear from young people how they want to be protected online, how they would like to report abuses. Jessie, do you have anything to add?
I mean, honestly, if you ask me whether stakeholders really include children, it depends on what you mean by that. Do you mean that they include them as in you see them there, or are they actually talking at the table?
Right.
Because nowadays, all the time, you see people saying, oh yeah, we've included children, but are the children actually, you know, speaking there? Or are they just sitting there and being like, oh yes, we agree? Because I've seen so many stakeholders say, you know, they show us that these are what the children said, but when you actually go to the kids and you ask them, oh, is this what you said? They say, no, we didn't say that. Surprisingly, right? Yes. Yeah, some adults like to change what kids say to their liking, which I feel like is so wrong, because you're trying to fix issues that are affecting children, but you don't want to take the considerations from the child who is affected by the issue.
Right. Okay.
So, besides that, you know, when children want to be protected online and not just offline, I feel like it's so difficult, because some people will say that, oh, we're not mature enough to understand what these online things are or what computers and how the systems work. But the truth is that the young generation is always on the internet. So I feel like out of every person that should know how the internet works, it would be us, right?
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, come on, like, give us a chance. You know, you can have your doubts, but if you don't give that chance, then how will you know what we're really going to say? I mean, even for example, a few days ago, on the recent case about the stabbing in the
violence in schools.
Yeah. When that came up, I saw that there were so many cartoonified images of the victim and the perpetrator going all over social media. Yeah, it was very shocking. I mean, even for me, I was like, that is such a violation of not only the victim, but also the perpetrator, their identity, and their rights overall, you know? So just from that, I feel like we can see that we need more improvement, and how we can protect these kids is that, you know, putting in better systems, better moderation. But when you take media and internet away from children, that's not going to fix anything, because as we've seen, you know, children, they will find any way to break that system. So, you know, you just need to consult children realistically and not just put them there as decoration or to check something off.
So, yeah. Do you have anything to add about how children can be meaningfully included, and that wonderful example of violence in schools, and how we can engage children even before the violence happens in school? So there's one part of it where you need reporting mechanisms, but before that, there's also a whole host of other interventions that can be done to prevent it from ever reaching that place, and maybe hearing or listening to children when they tell us what they need.
Yeah. No, I mean, both of you said it so well, Melisa and Jessie. I mean, we need more children, young people like Jessie to articulate and to say what they need concretely in family, in community, in the school. Melisa, you are right, you know, when violence happens, it's already too late. Usually there is a retribution to those who offended, and there are some protective measures for a victim, but our objective is not to have this at the first place, as you mentioned. So it's a prevention. So we need to design the community, the schools, based on the needs of the children. We need to institutionalize a mechanism for participation of young people and children. They will tell us what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. They will tell us what type of relationship with the teachers, with the community they need. I personally do promote having counselors in the schools. Unfortunately, this is not always possible, but when you look at the maybe budget of Malaysia, Malaysia is almost high-income country, I'm sure that with some reallocation we can support the system to ensure the qualified counselors are in the school to talk about the problems of today. Problems of today, they are very different from the problems when I was a student. So we need to catch up what is relevant for this young generation, and we need to talk about it, and we need to ask them what are the solutions, because partnership with young people is the way to do it. Participation is not an optional, and is not, as Jessie said, just to tick the box. If we really want to respect the rights of children and to have a modern society, prosperous society, which Malaysia is on the right way to go, we really need to partner with young people. We need to learn from them.
How do we do that realistically? I do wonder, because sometimes in a society like Malaysia, which is that has that kind of power distance, a very big power distance in terms of the gap, children are often seen and, you know, not heard. Children are often seen as secondary or peripheral. How do we make sure that that's changing in terms of mindset, but also in terms of practice?
Yeah. I mean, I also come from the society which is not a reflex to consult. I was not consulted on many things when I was a child and people in my community. But this is also changing. As Jessie said, young people now know much more than we know.
Absolutely.
Because they are exposed to the information. Yeah. But also it's the matter of practice of asking children. And I can see, I mean, I'm in Malaysia since 2023. I'm impressed. I go for the many events and climates are one of them, where young people are really at the heart of the discussion. And I've seen some very high-level officials from the government not only willing to listen, but really willing to involve. For example, we are going to have annual review this year in December when we discuss with the government results for this year. I'm happy for the first time we will have participation of youth and the government will listen to them. So it's the matter of creating habit of first involving young people and children, then slowly listening them, and at the end, you know, it will be a norm. It's already norm in some events. It's already norm.
All right, and that's wonderful to hear that that's coming from the adults in the room. But for the children, how did you, Jessie, become an advocate yourself? How did you learn to advocate for your rights and speak up when no one was really listening and say, hey, I deserve a seat at that table? How did you get here, and what advice do you have for other children who might want to advocate for themselves and their peers?
I feel like, honestly, my journey as a young advocate started like not quite young actually. It only started about last year. Okay. But everything that I've learned it's actually quite easy to understand what your rights are and what you actually deserve to have. Because when I realize, you know, I see teachers scolding us for things that aren't even wrong, or I see adults saying that, oh, children don't matter, you know, they'll figure it out themselves. It's weird, you know, it's conflicting, because people always say that these adults, these teachers, our parents, our counselors, our principals even, they are the ones to protect us, to guide us. But yet, in my everyday life, I didn't see that. You know, I felt like, okay, that's so weird. So by luck, by chance, I was brought to a workshop that was related to the report itself. And I learned about my rights there, and from there, my journey just grew. And I realized that if I'm really going to advocate, I need to advocate harder and better so that adults will truly listen to children and we can make a better Malaysia. And for, you know, young people that want to be advocates, the main thing is to always stick to who you are. You know, don't try to be what the adults tell you to be. Don't try to follow what other people do. Stick to who you are, because advocacy isn't about following the books. It's about following what you think is right.
Right. For the people, the skeptics out there who say, you know, young people are not engaged, they don't care about what's happening, they just want to kind of live in a little bubble of entertainment and friends and, you know, childhood essentially. Some people say that young people are disenfranchised and disengaged from what's happening around the world. How would you respond to that? Do you think that's true?
I think it's not true. Because the thing is that it's not that children are disengaged or that, oh, we don't care about politics. But rather it's that we do care, but the way that we care is different from how adults care. Because you can't expect like 7-year-old children to immediately spit out so many bombastic words, right? But actually, if you listen to their conversations, they in fact do understand what's happening in the world. It's just that they understand it in their way. So the truth is that a lot of youth people, they care so much. In fact, even for my own friend group, they love to talk about these things and we love to discuss about them, but we never get that chance to bring it to adults because we all have that fear that, oh, this adult will judge us, or they will tell us that we're wrong and that this is the wrong way to think.
Yeah, which is why I get so encouraged when I look at how passionate young people are about climate action, because this directly affects them. So they're fighting for their future, and everything we've seen in terms of even internationally, how young people have been able to move the needle when it comes to climate action has been so inspiring to me. Clearly, climate action is something that you feel quite passionate about, and your friends as well, I take it, Jessie?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, every day we see like all these things happening, and it's like, when are we really going to be involved? Because yes, this is our future, but we will be the ones still having to solve these issues when it's not fixed now.
Right, definitely.
they inherited the problems that we created, and they will need to deal with it. So rightly, they ask their space at the table, and they're very articulated young people. They know much more about the climate than many adults, and I'm so pleased in Malaysia. For example, I think in September, it was the famous in the margins of ASEAN event, it was Langkawi declaration, where young people said clearly to all the ministers what they want, what future should look like. And you know, don't forget that we always, you know, Jessie is very articulated. We are happy in Malaysia to have a very strong group of young people, but let's not forget to ask a refugee child, a migrant child, a child with disability, child because of his or her own status is not going to the school, child who is in detention because of the status that he has. So in UNICEF we say child is child no matter what.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to have any child being left behind, and child rights apply to all, right? Yeah,
everyone at all time.
Sanja, can I ask you for next year for the CRC review, what are you what is Malaysia expected to deliver by 2026?
You mean the report?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Committee on the Rights of the Child. They prepared the list of the questions for Malaysian delegation, and it will be more dialogue. So it will be the opportunity for Malaysian delegation to report on the progress on the child rights and some specific questions that they will be asked, because the CRC is very comprehensive legal document. There is a lot of articles. I have to say that Malaysian delegation is preparing really diligently for the meeting, the dialogue in Geneva. We are also happy that we are trusted in this process to help them to present Malaysia. And there will be always the questions that answers still do not exist, right? There are many countries going through the same process, but this is the way that the CRC committee would like to help the government to really elevate the child rights in their respective countries.
If I were to ask the both of you if there was anything in terms of child rights where you hope is given particular attention, so we get to see maybe the needle move in terms of progress on child rights. If there was one area, and I know there's so many that we could cover, that wouldn't be enough hours in the day, to be honest with you, but Jessie and Sanja, Jessie, if I may begin with you.
I think the one thing that I would really like to be focused on is access to education and mental health, because I feel like both of them coincide with each other, right? Because let's say if you don't get to go to school, then you don't get to make friends, and that affects your mental health. But if your school system is horrible and they don't treat you right, then it affects your mental health as well. So if we focus on both of those things, I feel like we can really, you know, fix some issues that need to be focused on.
Thank you, Sanja.
I would really like for Malaysia, and I think it's feasible, to lift the reservations to the CRC, especially article on non-discrimination. And this would also allow all children who are residing in Malaysia free access to the education system. The second, I would really like to see that poverty is measured on a regular basis, child poverty. And taken into account, and this is on the way. Of course, mental health, climate, more budget, more child budget for more funds for children practically, and alignment of the child protection system according to the international standards. For example, we still have in Malaysia a social workforce that is not professionalized. So we would like really to see that social workforce is professionals like any other sectors.
Could you very quickly elaborate what you mean in terms of measuring child poverty more regularly?
It's to know what is the situation, actually to know who are the left behind, who are the poor among the poorest. Just to know, data is the issue, and not only in Malaysia, it's everywhere, but if we address the data on many things, child poverty, children with disability, to have the baseline data in order to create action.
Right. Well, there's so much we've covered today, and I want to thank you both for coming on the show and, you know, spotlighting some of these issues. And happy World Children's Day to you, both of you. Thank you so much for fighting for children's rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Melisa. Happy World Children's Day.
Happy World Children's Day. That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.